We have a nice crowd on this almost rainy Friday, beginning of the Memorial Day weekend. Oh, we have a nice big crowd. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yay.
There's Heather and Mary Bethel and Steve and a lot of people I know. Yay.
You do in the Zoom gallery there. You have a lot of admirers, and a number of people were excited to have you join us today. I'd like to welcome everyone to Friday Facts, the North Carolina Serious Illness Coalition's Friday Facts. You'll be seeing all me today, and we're so excited to be joined by Dr. Althea Taylor Jones. Yes, I'm seeing already, the chats have started already. The fans of everyone, the fans of Dr. Taylor Jones, who we're going to get into it. Your titles just go on and on and on. She's a certified gerontologist. And after I looked at all the titles, I just said, and an inspirational advocate. As people are coming on, I'm excited for you to be talking with us and start to dive into all of the wonderful organizations you have worked for and you have volunteered with and you have led. I see the Southern Gerontological Society, the Adult Children of Aging Parents, AARP North Carolina. We were just talking right before we started recording about work that Dr. Taylor Jones has done multiple times with the North Carolina Institute of Medicine. Did so well a number of years ago. She got asked back, and we're especially excited to talk to her about her work with the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature. I'm so sorry. Dr. Althea Taylor Jones, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to see everyone. I'm looking at lots of familiar faces. Hey, Mary. Mary's waving there. Okay, Karen is on here. Wow. Good to see you guys.
Yes, and I know you know Linda Darden. I mean,
yes,
it's going to
go. Yes. All of you great people are here this morning. And Heather is awake this morning.
That's this Heather and Heather Burkhart. There's two Heathers here.
Right.
Yes, I'm so excited and I'm honored to join now the Althea Taylor Jones fan club. As I see, it is a very cool and esteemed membership of all the people. When we shared that we were able to have you on, this is how you were described. You're having a North Carolina treasure and lifelong advocate for older adults and their caregivers. So now, before we dive into all of the ways you are involved, especially with the Senior Tar Heel Legislature, tell us a bit. You and I were just talking off recording, but tell a little bit about your background. Where are you from and what started this wonderful long career in aging and advocacy?
Wow, where do I begin? I was born down in Brownsville, Tennessee. It's about 50 miles north of Memphis, Tennessee, down near the Mississippi River. Born down there, as I said earlier, in the country on a farm. I am the eldest of 9 biological children and ended up with 10 in the family after mom passed away and dad remarried and his second wife has a daughter. So I'd say I am the eldest of 10. Coming from a farm family, moving to Nashville, Tennessee to attend Tennessee State University in therapeutic recreation and some nursing courses and some other, things of that nature. Yeah. So that's basically the background. Living with grandparents. As I tell people, I had to go to school over the river and through the woods because being the eldest of 9, the next sibling was not ready for school yet, wouldn't be for a few years. So I had to go over the river and through the woods to school. Therefore, I stayed on Monday, Tuesday with one set of grandparents and Wednesday, Thursday with another set of grandparents. And dad picked me up on Friday to take me back over the river and through the woods home. So it was a good experience living with what I called elders at that time. And of course, my grandparents were in their 40s. So when you think about it, you look at how
actually that's the same age my children have.
Yes. So, and our youngest daughter is a grandparent now, and she's 52. So when I think of that, looking at even at that decade of difference in ages with grandparents when I was growing up as a child, but that's my first experience with what I considered older adults or aging parents or grandparents, persons who exuded wisdom and experience and could really help me on my path. So that's how I started out in terms of revering elders or actually connecting with older adults from a 5 or 6 year old's perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And it is interesting that the years of folks at 52 now. I'm not a grandmother yet. I can't wait, but it is interesting the ages of what parents and grandparents. Okay, but we have way too much to talk about there now. So as the folks know, I do a bit of what I call stalking of our guests. Normal people would call it research, but I call it stalking. And it was fun to stalk you. You then moved and you were, I see all kinds of things. You then, looks like you then went into the division of vocational rehab and the corrections. And then at 50, you went back to school and got your PhD in gerontology. Talk about that fascinating. I thought I was a later in life graduate student, but you beat me by a few years, and that's amazing. Tell me about that movement.
Well, moving to North Carolina, we moved to North Carolina in 1971. My husband is an electrical engineer by trade. Although he retired in 2016 after pastoring for 35 years in Winston-Salem. But he's an electrical engineer by trade, so his job with Westinghouse Electric Corporation brought us to North Carolina in 1971. So I connected with, first of all, the Department of Corrections, working with all male prisoners for 2 years. That's the best job I ever had. Best job I ever had. And I say that basically because
why? Tell us why.
The males were so protective of me. They were so respectful and protective that I felt as if I was the queen with them, working with them. This was the program that was getting them out of prison, teaching them interview skills and so forth to get them back into the community so that they can make that readjustment. Then did that for 2 years prior to going with Voc Rehab Services. With Voc Rehab Services, worked with persons out of John Olmsted Hospital. Many of you are familiar with the old John Olmsted Hospital down in Butner, and also some of the other facilities down in Raleigh, Dick's Hospital, and some of the others that were there at the time, way back when, as they say, way back in the day. But with persons being released from those, coming to the community, working with mental health services, and through Voc, working with the high schoolers and basically every age group through Voc Rehab Services, even with the Forsyth Medical Center, with some of the persons coming with physical disabilities coming out of that facility as well. So I did that for 17 years before going into as director of counseling at Winston-Salem State University in 1990, going into that field for 5 years prior to deciding that, okay, now it's time for me, as I have grown up, I'm 50 now, I've grown up, so it's time for me to move on and do what I've always wanted to do. So that's when I entered Virginia Tech to actually work on the PhD in human development. Of course, prior to that, I did App State with the rehab psychology and counselor education to sort of help with those 17 years in rehab. So I've been, a few places in my life, been a few places, done a few things.
But that's an amazing journey. It's now I see why everyone talks about you as so inspiring. I mean, right then and there, the movement of working to support different populations, that you decided you wanted to start to direct that focus towards gerontology. Why gerontology? And then moving from being a student, then you turned and you were a faculty for a number of years. Again, you're very fun to stalk. I've got Winston-Salem State University, then you were, and before that at NCA&T, High Point, Wake Forest. I mean, you moved then from continuing your education to start educating others through gerontology. Tell us about that motivation.
Well, the motivation basically, I've always felt, and I've been taught that way as well, that if you're blessed, you bless others. And I've always told individuals, anyone that I've really rubbed shoulders with, that whatever I have is not just for me. What was given to me was not just for Althea. It was given to Althea so that she could pass it on, share with others, particularly when across generations, looking at intergenerational issues, making sure that all the generations have what they need growing up here again, going back to living on that farm, being the eldest of all those kids. And I was a mother before I was a mother, because I assisted my mom with taking care of the younger children. So when I think of that and all the experiences that I had, even before leaving home on my own, I pull that in and I pass that on. I have 5 generations in my family. My dad's wife is still living, then my generation, and then we have children, we have 2 children, we have 6 grandchildren, and we have 2 great-grandchildren. So we're getting ready to go to Atlanta next month for our annual family reunion. And that is something too that I think is very key in terms of making all those connections, having those groups, having those support connections, whether they're family, close friends, or whomever. We have an annual family reunion we've not missed. We go home every other year to Tennessee. This year is my youngest brother, he's the host down in Atlanta. I've held it 3 times in Winston-Salem over the years. So this is what I believe in, passing on, connecting, rubbing shoulders with the younger generations. These are the people that will take care of us, or that should be taking care of us now. When we're talking about more people 65 plus than there are 17 and younger, I look at that and who's going to take care of me? Who's going to take care of
Yes.
all of us? Who will we
Yeah,
have there?
keeping those connections.
Yes.
I'm married into a family that has big family reunions in Oklahoma. I was just telling my father, I used to tell my children when we walked into the room, I said, okay, these 150 people you see, you are related to all of them, and they
Yes.
all love you.
Yes.
They are all there for you, and they're rooting for you.
Mhm.
So that's amazing. So this ability to support others and have them support you, and this connectivity just kind of weaves through. There's so much I want to dive into in terms of your experience as an educator, but I'm going to switch us for right now to move deeper into your experience as an advocate. Sorry, it seemed in my head a better flow. At some point, you started doing all this advocacy work. Well, clearly you're always advocating on the individual level. When did it become the larger level and you start joining these groups like the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature?
Basically, during probably the last 5 years or so of being the professor in the classroom, working with the different community support groups and so forth. Dean Burgess, I don't know if any of you remember Dean Burgess, some of you do. Dean Burgess was very closely connected with me. We were like sisters. We lost her way too early. She convinced me to accept the position of alternate for the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature back in 2006. So that's when I basically made the first connection in terms of community advocacy and pushing that forward to become involved with some other organizations. So working with Nancy Hall, some of you probably know Nancy Hall. Nancy was a delegate at the time. Nancy decided in 2010 that she wanted to change roles. So she convinced me to become the delegate as opposed to the alternate. And she took the alternate spot. So I've been working with the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature since 2006. And what is that, about 17 years or so, somewhere in that area. But
Exactly.
looking at the issues of seniors, here again, gerontology, my first love, really expounding on that to get to that particular point. When I look at each of the North Carolina 100 counties with a delegate and an alternate represented on the senior tar, at least we have the opportunity for that. It's still not enough people that are out there advocating for our older adults, the people who have given their lives, who have given their all for North Carolina. And yet here we are with many of the issues that they're faced with today, not positive at all. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to get involved with that and have stuck with that from day one. And of course, we know that North Carolina ranks 9th nationally in the total population and 8th in the number of people that are 65 and older. So when we look at that, a lot of people are moving to North Carolina. There's a lot of in-migration. People are coming here. They're needing services. They're connecting with family, with friends, with whomever. Many of them do not have a biological or even, a surrogate family of sorts. So there are people who, here again, as I said earlier, need someone to advocate for them, need someone to listen to their issues, their problems, and help them to begin to put a a set of goals, a set of objectives in place so that they can meet their needs, just basic needs in many cases, unfortunately. So that's one of the reasons why, or the main reason, I'm still connected with the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature. I retired in 2009 from Winston-Salem State University. My husband said the only difference with what I was doing then and now is that the paycheck does not come home with me. That's the only difference. And he said, and the other difference is, of course, I think you're working a lot more and a lot harder than you did when you were actually being paid to do that. And that is so true, because now I have the opportunity to, that's a choice that I have now. I have the opportunity to decide where I'm going, when I'm going, who I'm going to connect with. And that's why I've added other organizations. You know, I was already connected with the Southern Gerontological Society, with the Association for Gerontology and Higher Education. When I was at the university, I kept connection with those groups, served as president of SGS back in 2021 and 22, was asked to do 2 years, but I'm going, no, not at my age. I'll just take one. I'll give you one, because I need to give some time and energy to some of the other organizations as well. But I'm still actively engaged with SGS. I just finished up on a conference up in Norfolk back in April. Was a great conference.
I'm going to interrupt you just to say, you got to say what part you're with. SGS, that might be the best acronym ever. Tell them about what part of SGS. You do a lot with them, but I love the gerontologists rooted in the South. You won that award, otherwise known as the Grits Award. I love it.
That was an award that I was presented at the conference, this past conference. Totally surprised, totally shocked. And to learn that one of the young professionals who followed me at Winston-Salem State University was the one that nominated me for that award, Dr. Anthony Skipper down at in Georgia. So that was really a wonderful experience, a wonderful surprise for me as well. And people ask, well, why do you do this, or why do you do that? I just do it because I know it needs to be done. I do what I do because I love people. I love making sure that their lives are positive, that they have dignity, they have respect. So that's why I do what I do. I tell people sometimes with all the op-eds and different things that I do in the local newspapers and on the news and whatever, people get sick of hearing Althea. I said, well, so what? I'll change my name, but I'll still do what I do.
Well, now I see why. I mean, I'm joining all the Zoom boxes of the people who I respect and admire, and the people who I respect and admire the most told me I should respect and admire you, and I am seeing why. I am so glad I'm now in your universe. In terms of your advocacy, there's so much that drives you. How do you help to educate others about why it's important to be an advocate? How do you encourage other older adults and family caregivers to move? And it's a hard ask to say you're dealing with so much, but we'd love for you to share your story and move into advocacy and join you along your journey in this group. Right. So how do you do that?
Well, a lot of it's still, here again, going back to the basics of being taught that whatever I know, whatever I have is not just for me. And working with older adults to help them to accept their skills, their talents, their abilities, what they have, to look back, to do an evaluation, to determine what is it that I can give to someone else? What is it that, first of all, I can give to myself? How can I be selfish for once and look at what my needs are, and then look at how I can meet my needs? And if I don't precisely know how to meet those needs, who can I rub shoulders with? How can I get involved with this group, with that group, with this social connection, with the Shepherd Center, with the Senior Center, with the whatever center, to really get connected? And that's one way that I work with older adults, because I volunteer at the Shepherd Center. I do things for them, with them. Not only do I do the educational and informational workshops and seminars and so forth, but engaged in their activities with them on a regular basis, taking trips with them, following them, going with them, letting them know that I am a part of you, that I don't consider myself to be any higher than you. I don't consider myself to be any more, well, I guess I could say blessed in a way, because of the experiences and so forth that I've had over my lifetime. But connecting and keeping them in the connection there, not leaving them behind, not separating them from the main group, not putting them in a subgroup, but connecting them with those advocacy organizations and issues that can help them to meet their needs.
And what's so wonderful is connecting with you. It's connecting to all of this different pathways through all the different organizations. I want to thank and put people's attention towards the chat. Thank you, Heather. Heather Burkhart put a link to the North Carolina Senior Tar Heel Legislature so folks could learn more about it. Now, you're still active with the Senior Tar Heel Legislature,
yes,
correct?
I am still the delegate for Forsyth County.
And then how is it going now? We are deep into politics and issues going on here in North Carolina, deciding on the long session and budget discussions. How does the Senior Tar Heel Legislature actually influence policy in North Carolina?
Boy, oh boy, I wish I knew. In terms of actually working together as an organization or as a group, we have priorities that we put forth. And we're trying to make sure that those priorities are the ones that our seniors really need to help them to live their golden years with dignity, or ever how we want to put that. So we're still allocating for additional funding for adult protective services to protect those persons from, we know that elder abuse is really on the rise now, particularly in terms of financial abuse, really taking those assets and so forth from the older adults, those who are depending on their caregivers to provide their care. We're looking at increasing the senior center general funding so that there are funds there for the activities, for the programs for seniors in the community to be able to get out, to get engaged, to socially connect. Also allocating an additional amount of funding, I believe it's around $8 million in recurring funds for the Home and Community Care Block Grant. That also has been around for a number of years and can provide those type of services that the seniors are needing to keep them connected, to keep them positive, to keep them from staying at home and becoming depressed and anxious and not connecting with other persons in the community. Also, we're asking for an allocation of an additional $1.5 million of recurring funds to add 11 additional long-term care ombudsmen. And we know that the long-term care ombudsmen are key in terms of the nursing home situations and other assisted living. And look at what has happened with COVID. We all can feel, very, very negative regarding a lot of things that have happened with COVID. Now we say we're post-COVID, but are we really post-COVID? Maybe we're post that emergency part of the COVID pandemic. But then there are other issues that we're dealing with, with the long-term care, with the illness situation, the different types of things that we tend to face as we age, the different illnesses and different issues that we're facing, that's key as well. And we also need to strengthen the long-term care staffing standards as well. How many nurses are absent now? How many nurses do we need? How many nurses assistants do we need across the state? People are not getting what they need because the staff is not there. We're looking at the amount of people we're losing in the different professions. And when we think of older adults, we're needing people in practically every profession there is because of the situations that we're facing as we age. So with the Senior Tar Heel Legislature, we're coming up on our 30th anniversary. We'll be meeting down in Raleigh on June 6th and 7th, and we will hopefully advance those priorities to the next level, at least in the minds and hearts of some of the people that we will rub shoulders with while we're there, and also across the state as well.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I'm so excited you shared the legislative priorities for the Senior Tar Heel Legislature when Heather Burkhart and the Coalition on Aging helped to do, and we helped with it as well, the Aging Advocacy Day. I actually walked around with those priorities, as there's a nice complement between your legislative priorities and those of the Serious Illness Coalition. Well, it leads into, I know we only have a few minutes left. My question is also similar to Sue Deaton's question that is in the chat. so you have your priorities. What are some strategies that you use to engage and activate legislators on senior and lifespan caregiver issues?
So some of the strategies that we're using, and I think I mentioned some of those earlier, op-eds in the newspaper, letters to the editor, not only that, but also meeting with the county commissioners in our own counties, making sure that they are aware of what's going on. Unfortunately, many of the elected officials are not aware, and many of the elected officials really do not care. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. So I have to say it the way it is. So we have to try and connect with them in our home counties and make sure that we're doing what we need to do to get them engaged with issues, to look at what's going on in their counties, look at the number of seniors that are needing services, the number of seniors that are basically being neglected, that are being abused, the ones that are not given attention and not given respect. So getting them involved, as well as the other social and educational groups and so forth that are in the different communities. So all citizens, basically all of persons that are interested in human beings, I should say, not just aging, but looking at every life stage. We should get everyone involved with this, because if we live, there's only one alternative to not becoming an older adult. Only one alternative. We either die before we age, or we become an older adult and will need some services at some time. So we need to make sure that we're all working together. And then when we're talking about issues as well, involving our younger people, they're the movers and the shakers for the future. They're the ones that will be making those decisions on our behalf. So we need to make sure that they are educated, they're informed, that they know what's going on, and that they're putting their 2 cents worth in that early in life, such that they can become a vital part as they age as well.
Well, that's so helpful and wonderful. And what I love is through all of your different activities, you are part of the strategy. I'm seeing as part of the connected sharing of goals between different initiatives. So the fact that you're active with the Senior Tar Heel Legislature, and I do want to remind folks, I said it really quickly, but you're also really active with the North Carolina Institute of Medicine's Healthy Aging Task Force. So the work that you're doing on the local level connects with the work on the state level, and then it connects into the think tank work that's happening with the Institute of Medicine. So you're able to continue, it looks like, to share all the messages. You're seeing the love come in from Mary Bethel. Thank you for all you do and for being an inspiration to many. I did want to give a quick shout out, besides all of the things that you're doing and participating on and writing in newspapers. You and your husband also wrote a book. You authored the book Colorful Memories, Aging with Style. And then in 2014, you and your husband, the Reverend Dr. Joseph Jones, you co-authored Goose Sense.
Yes.
So real quick, what inspired you? Can I go on Amazon and get these books? What's happening
Yes, you
here?
can.
What are they about?
Yes, you can. They are available on Amazon. Goose Sense is a book about life, just life in general. There are 12 lessons in that book, and it starts with the very beginning with children, and it goes to the very end with dealing with grief and loss, end of life. So we go from the very beginning to the very end in that book with 12 lessons on life. And that's one that we took a good look at the life stages, looking at different intergenerational issues, experiences that we've had over our lifetime, and wanted to share some of those with others who possibly would not take the time to put them in that particular fashion or manner, but it would be available for them to do that. Now the Colorful Memories book, that was from my research, from my doctoral research.
Okay, well, it doesn't take much for me to give myself presents, and my almost rainy Friday Memorial Day present, I'm going to go on Amazon and order these books. We're out of time. I cannot thank you enough. A few months ago, as we were talking about, we really wanted to have a powerful speaker to help bring us through. It's Older Americans Month. We've got a few days left, though in our world, it's Older Americans Year. But you came highly recommended. And Dr. Althea Taylor Jones, I cannot thank you enough for all the work that you are doing. I love that you have shared that you are blessed. And so you help to bless others, and you have blessed us all today with sharing your work. I know I'm not the only one inspired, as I'm seeing on the chat line, but really many, many thanks. And thanks to everyone for your work with the coalition, and especially on this Memorial Day weekend. May you all be safe and blessed and happy and healthy and safe.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Good seeing everyone.